We're now a few days removed from K-Dot's legendary performance at the Kia Forum in Los Angeles. And what a moment it was. We saw performances from a number of West Coast artists, both new and old. The show essentially served as a victory lap for the West Coast and for Kendrick himself as he comes off his win in a battle for the ages against arguably the biggest artist in the world, Aubrey Drake Graham. The two have been at the forefront of the music game for the past decade, creating chart-topping records along with classic projects. Now, of course, there's been a long time, never-ending debate on who the GOAT of this generation really is, and the three primary candidates always came down to J. Cole, Drake, and Kendrick Lamar. All three had a legitimate case for the crown, and fan bases would argue endlessly on forums, blog sites, and comment sections, debating on who the greatest MC really is. But after all these years, the unthinkable happened, and we actually got to see them duke it out in a full 12-round slugfest where we have an official champion. Now, does this mean that Kendrick is the true certified GOAT? Well, in the spirit of competition, then I guess you can say yes, but if you're a person who values consistency and numbers, then you may still go the other way and say Drake. But in the court of public opinion, it appears that Kendrick may have very well taken the crown all for himself. The relationship began back in 2011 when Lamar was featured on Drake's sophomore album, Take Care, on the interlude Buried Alive. Drake first came to know young K-Dot after hearing his then unreleased project, Section 80. He liked his music so much that he asked him to be a part of his album. At the time, Drake was already further along in his career as he'd been in the game for a couple of years, and Kendrick was still relatively unknown, although he had some buzz in the underground. Drake would go on to feature Kendrick on his Club Paradise tour along with A$AP Rocky, further pushing them both to the forefront, co-signing and shining light on the young artists. But it didn't take long for Kendrick to blow up himself, as soon after he would go on to release his debut project, Good Kid, Mad City. This album would shoot Kendrick into superstardom, beginning his reign as a force to be reckoned with in the new generation. On this project, Drake would also return the favor of being featured on the track Poetic Justice. The two had formed a strong alliance during this time, but it was in 2013 when everything was about to change. This year was an absolute roller coaster in hip-hop as the genre was experiencing a renaissance. The new generation of artists were in full effect, and the leaders in the new school were about to all be put on notice. On August 12, 2013, Kendrick would drop the verse heard around the world on Big Sean's record, Control, calling out all of his peers by name. Now, this was the first blatant challenge brought on by Kendrick, showing his competitive spirit and stating that he's here to take the crown. Calling out his peers at the time, including J. Cole, Drake, Big Crit, Tyler the Creator, Mac Miller, and more, serving as the official start of the trio's decade-long feud. Now, most of the artists that he called out and didn't call out were up for the challenge and welcomed the competition with open arms.
Everyone is talking about this Control song that you put out. You heard Kendrick's verse, did you know it was going to be as big as it turned out to be?
Yeah, I was just excited, you know what I'm saying? That dude's, man, that's my homie. He called me and we was talking about it. And, you know, it's just in all fun games and sports, man. It's one
of those things where I appreciated the promotion. For one, a lot of people didn't. He mentioned me, and a lot of people like, why the fuck did he say Big Crit name? But I am a competitor. This is a gladiator kind of sport. But y'all are cool. Oh yeah, I ain't no goddamn beef.
Right. Everybody but Drake. He refused to respond to Kendrick as he believed he was the bigger artist and didn't want to give him any more shine, treating him like he's below him.
Like after Kendrick's thing, you wouldn't. I noticed you didn't really get into that too much. So
I just I don't know. It just wasn't real to me. It's like I saw him after that, and it was just like love. So it's like, was that real or was that just like for the people? You know what I mean?
I think it's a sparring kind of sport.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, you know, then let it be real. Then, you know, I mean, because those were harsh words, right? So, you know,
but you seem just now a little irritated by it. No.
Really?
Yeah, just by even saying that it was those harsh words, it seemed like maybe it irritated you for a second. Is that wrong?
No, it's just like, I mean.
Nonetheless, Kendrick continued to antagonize the pop star as later that year during the TDE Cypher at the BET Hip Hop Awards, he'd take yet another jab at him.
You either corny or an opportunist. I let you eat, now go back to church and still crack this at communion. What are we doing? I'm about to crack the Da Vinci Code. Yeah, and nothing been the same since they dropped Control and tucked the sensitive rapper back in his pajama clothes.
Now, in the meantime, we also have the Cole story arc at play here. Kendrick and Cole's relationship goes pretty far back to even before they dropped their debut projects. They would first meet on the set of the 2010 XXL photo shoot where Cole and K-Dot's fellow TDE artist J-Rock graced the cover. Initially impressed after hearing a few records, the two would go on to collab as Cole sent him some beats, one of which ended up being the track High Power off of Lamar's album Section 80. The two would even take it a step further by introducing the idea of a joint project. A few songs would leak, continuing its anticipation, and both artists spoke about its potential, but ultimately nothing came of it. So now we're here in 2013 again, and Cole would release his long-awaited sophomore album Born Sinner in June of that year, where Kendrick Kendrick was featured on the record Forbidden Fruit. On this record, Cole would go on to make multiple references about how he's the greatest of his generation and how he's the king of the rap game. But interestingly enough, just a couple of months later, Kendrick dropped the Control verse. So now we've come to an interesting crossroads at a moment that is over 10 years old at this point. The stage had been set and all three artists would each make their respective runs throughout the 2010s. Over the next 10 years, all three artists would put out incredible bodies of work, upping the bar with each release. At the end of 2014, J. Cole would release what some would say is his magnum opus, 2014 Forest Hills Drive, where he would go on to reference both Drake and Kendrick on the record January 28th, and continue to state his claim as the greatest MC on the song Fire Squad. Meanwhile, on the other side, Drake would go on to release his iconic surprise mixtape, If You're Reading This, It's Too Late. Then just a short month later, Kendrick would release his own surprise project as well, dropping his classic album To Pimp a Butterfly. The three projects would inevitably be compared by critics, but all three albums couldn't be more different. But the most notable thing to come out of this entire era was when Drake would be hit with ghostwriting allegations. In July of 2015, Meek Mill would post to Twitter exposing Drake for having ghostwriters. Now, we all remember the whole Quentin Miller saga and the reference tracks released for If You're Reading This, so we're not going to get into that. But the moment became so big that some thought this would be the cause of Drake's downfall. And boy, were they wrong. Soon after, Drake absolutely destroyed Meek's career with the diss records Charged Up and Back to Back. Even with the allegations, If You're Reading This would ultimately be a success, as it did break records, as it became Spotify's most streamed album ever for its first week. From 2016 to 2018, Drake and Kendrick would continue to make waves. Kendrick would go on to sweep the 58th annual Grammy Awards with 5 total wins for To Pimp a Butterfly. But 2016 turned out to be an absolute monster year for Drake himself, as he was pumping out hit records left and right. His album views sold over 1 million in its first week and included the smash hits Hotline Bling, One Dance, and Controller. Drake would continue to keep his foot on the gas, dropping the album More Life in early 2017. Again, just a month later, Kendrick would proceed to drop arguably his greatest project to date, titled Damn. Now, on a commercial level, Damn would become a huge success, as it would go on to outsell More Life by more than 100,000 copies. Meanwhile, on the Cole side of things, this had been sort of a quiet time from him, as he really only dropped between 2016 and 2018, and that project was For Your Eyes Only, which to some is considered his worst body of work. During the 2018 Grammys, Kendrick would again clean house, taking home 4 Grammys for Damn, while Cole had 7 nominations with 0 wins. From 18 to 21, aside from the Black Panther soundtrack, Kendrick was now pretty absent from the game. But in the meantime, this is where we began to see a lot more output from Cole. He would drop KOD in 2018 and follow that up with a total of 28 features between 2018 and 2019. He'd also put out the 3rd iteration of Revenge of the Dreamers, and Cole looked as hungry as ever. Meanwhile, Drake continued being consistent, releasing the album Scorpion, Certified Lover Boy, and Dark Lane demo tapes. He also would repackage a bunch of his older one-off singles to be put on streaming services, titled Care Package. And simply recapping the 2010s, it's been clear that Drake overall had dominated the game on a commercial level. He'd been the most consistent rapper, and his run has been truly unparalleled to anyone else. Meanwhile, with Kendrick out of the picture for some time, some wondered if he'd ever make a resurgence. Then it finally happened. After 5 long years, Kendrick Lamar would finally make his long-awaited return with Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Now, some did not like this project, considering it to be boring, but nonetheless, Lamar showed out as he was more introspective and vulnerable than ever before, reflecting on his life and experiences during his therapy journey, showing a different level of growth and maturity. The album would go on to win Best Rap Album at the Grammys and received 8 total nominations. All right, now that we've loosely covered some of the backstory on their history, let's get into the record that made all the dominoes fall. First Person Shooter. On Halloween night 2023, J. Cole and Drake would release a record that unknowingly set off what has come to be known as the rap civil war with First Person Shooter. On the song, Cole makes a statement: "Love how they argue the hardest MC. Is it K. Dot? Is it Aubrey or me? We the big three like we started a league." Now, at a surface level, Cole appears to be simply giving a friendly nod to Kendrick, acknowledging him as part of the aforementioned big three, but Kendrick obviously didn't take too kindly to it. You see, prior to the record being released, it is rumored to be known that Drake had reached out to Kendrick to be featured on the track as well, but Kendrick ultimately turned down the offer. He would make reference to this on his response tracks, which we'll get to shortly. Following the release of First Person Shooter, Kendrick would fire fire at both MCs on his feature verse for the track Like That, along with Future and Metro Boomin, where he would get off the now iconic line, "Mother F the Big Three, it's just Big Me." The track would skyrocket to #1 and immediately put both Drake and Cole in the hot seat as the world awaited a response. Cole would be the first to strike back with the track 7-Minute Drill, which he released along with an EP titled Might Delete Later. Now, after its release, Cole would express remorse for the record almost immediately, feeling gross about the whole thing, and would eventually take it down altogether, saying at his Dreamville Fest that he basically didn't want any smoke with K. Dot, officially bowing out of the battle.
Right? So I'm so proud of that project, except for one part. It's one part of that shit that make me feel like, man, that's the lamest shit I ever did in my fucking life, right? So all of this time of me moving on my own accord, for the first time I was tested. Why am I tested? Because I got the world and I got my niggas like, what you gonna do, Cole? Now tonight, how many people think Kendrick Lamar is one of the greatest motherfuckers to ever touch a fucking microphone? You know what I mean? I pray that my nigga really didn't feel no way, and if he did, my nigga, I got my chin out. Take your best shot, I'm gonna take that shit on the chin, boy. Do what you do.
This move lost Cole a lot of respect amongst the hip-hop community, as people were really rooting for him to show out after all the smack that he'd been talking over these past few years. Nonetheless, Cole was officially out of the conversation. And then we had two. At this point, Drake decided to go on offense, releasing 2 records back-to-back titled Push-Ups and Tailor-Made Freestyle, putting the pressure back in K. Dot's camp. After a couple of weeks of anticipation and Drake mocking him, not thinking he had much up his sleeve, Kendrick returned fire with his own back-to-back with the records Euphoria and 616 in LA. Both artists had made their moves, and it was at this point where K. Dot simply played his hand best. Following Euphoria and 616, Drake dropped what we thought would be the bomb that everyone was waiting for with Family Matters. Now, the song is phenomenal, and for most opponents, it would for sure get the job done, but not with Kendrick. Immediately after its release, Kendrick would step all over it by dropping Meet the Grams, a record that completely switched the mood of the battle, taking you on a spooky cinematic experience, while Dot psychoanalyzed Aubrey to his core. The chess move strategically stopped Family Matters from gaining any legs, and it was actually the very next day where the real bomb was dropped. Not like us. This record took the cake as it went absolutely bananas from the jump. Drake would drop the Heart Part 6 the following day and basically admitted defeat, at least for the time being. Now, more recently, Kendrick had his pop-out show with a majority of the West Coast in attendance. He's basically solidified himself as the winner of the battle up until this point, and it's hard to make an argument against it. It's hard to imagine that Drake is going to ever let this go now, as he is the petty king, but who knows? He has tried to make peace with Lamar plenty of times in the past. But what do you guys think about this whole saga? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a like, and I'll see you in the next one.